Hi and welcome to Cherry Pie Math. This video is going to go over word problems involving proportions. Proportions in word problems normally use percentages because in the real world you don't actually see like fractions all that often. You normally see percentages. So before we get started, you should know what a unit rate is, and you should know how to change percentage to a decimal. If you don't know how to do either of those things, I would suggest you review them before getting started, just so that you have that basic information before we add on to it. So let's say you got $100, and actually to make this problem a little bit more interesting, I'm going to go ahead and change that 30 to a 70. So let's say you get $100. Would you rather add $70 a year or gain 50% of your current total every year? So I like to make things in charts. So let's say we have years. And if you want to, I would actually pause this video and see if you can figure out for yourself which one you would pick. Let's see. So let's say year 0, we have $100 in both cases because, you haven't done anything to it yet. Year 1, you add $70, so that becomes $170. And in the other one, we add 50%. 50% of 100 is $50, so I would have $150. So at 1 year, I would prefer to add $70. So let's do it a couple more times. So this would be 240 now. And in this one, we are adding 50% of our current total, and 50% of 150 is 75. So I would come out to be 225. That was too low. It should be up here. There we go. So still at 2 years, we would prefer $70. Let's try it all the way to 5 years. 200 and actually that wouldn't be 200 anymore. It'd be 310. And I'll just add it while I'm at it. That'd be 450. Okay, so that's what it would look like if I added $70 a year. In this other case, let's see, 225 divided by 2 plus 225 is 337.5. And again, we divide that by 2, so we're adding 168.75. So that would be plus 337. I know, shockingly, and this is one thing I've always been scared of, is that people are going to realize that I can't really do math in my head very well, even though I teach math. But I'm using a calculator, and that's not a bad thing. Calculators are great tools, but you shouldn't need to use them to do 2 plus 2 though. Okay, so here we are. And we can see that at around 3 years, this jumps up significantly higher. Because we're adding on more, that 50% grows and grows and grows. So it does make a difference for 1 year versus 5 years because that 50% was a little bit slower to get started, but at the end it started giving us more and more than just adding 70 every time. So in the real world, we don't actually see for every $100 we're going to pay 20. We normally just see a percentage. I would just say we're going to pay 20%. So think about where you have seen percentages in money before. So I've seen them in taxes, for example, or tips. That always freaks me out, when you're out and at a fast food restaurant and they give you something and they're like, do you want to give us a tip? And I'm like, I don't know how much I want to give you. Or I don't know, population growth. That's not a money thing, but that's another way I've seen percentages in the real world. So just write down whatever you can think of where you've seen percentages, maybe sales. Seen a lot of sales percentages. So when we're solving with percentages and the proportions, it's useful to be able to switch between percentages and decimals because we can use that decimal as a unit rate. It's harder to use the percentage because it's mathematically just a fraction written differently. So when I have a percentage, we'll just say AB%. In a decimal, it would be 0.AB, for example. So if I had 37%, it would be 0.37. Or if I had 5%, it would be 0.05. Be careful about those single digits because it's really tempting to just write 0.5, but that would actually be 50%. Okay. When you have a single digit, what I always like to do is I'll put the decimal here and then you just go whoop, whoop. So here I have a decimal, but then I have to still go another time, and then I just fill it in with a 0. And that kind of helps me remember that in a single digit, there's always going to be that extra 0 in front. So we're going to do a ton of examples. Honestly, most of them are about the same, so feel free to just kind of skip to the end if you feel like you understood it. But we're going to go through these as fast as I can. So let's say a family earns less than $94,300 are taxed 12%. If a family earns $85,000, how much do they owe? So to do this, we want to find the fraction, that 12% of 85. And if you think back to when we did multiplication by fractions, then you know that we multiply the decimal by the total, or the fraction by the total. So I would have 85,000, and then I'm going to multiply it by 0.12 because the 12% becomes just that decimal. And then I'm just going to plug it into my handy dandy calculator because, again, I really don't have the time or the energy to do this by hand, although you could. And that is equal to $10,200. And so they would owe $10,200 in taxes. That's it, really. You just multiply the total by the decimal percentage. So total times decimal percentage. So in this problem, we have a sale for 30%. An item originally cost $97. How much does it cost now? We have to be careful because it's not asking for how much we're deducting. It's asking for how much the item is going to cost. I've seen this done two ways. The first way is to just do it, like 97 times 0.3. And that would get you the amount of the sale. So let's see, 97 times 0.3 is 29.1. And then they would subtract it from the total. So 97 minus 29.1 is 67.9, and that would be my amount. So that's way number one, is to find the sale and then subtract it. The other way is to think about how much is in like a whole percent. 100% means all of it, right? So you do 100 minus 30 is 70. So I would do 97 times the remainder, which is 0.7, or 70%. Right? And that would just right away give me the amount of how much the item costs at the end. Either way you do it is totally fine. They both mathematically make sense. I honestly don't care. And you can use a calculator because, like I said, nobody's got the time to do this by hand unless your teacher asks you to, in which case I'm really sorry about that. Okay, so here, another way you might see it is in commissions. A lot of employees will get 20% commission for each item they help sell. Let's say they sell a ring for $850. How much of a commission would they receive? So like we've said before, we're really just doing the total times the decimal of the percentage. So 850 times 0.2 is 170. So they would receive $170 in commission. Are you noticing a pattern here? Percent error. Let's say a bag of pretzels is supposed to weigh 16 ounces. A randomly selected bag weighs 14.5 ounces. What is the percent of error? So the percent of error is basically saying how far off of the original is it. So first we have to find out how far off it is. So 16 minus 14.5 is 1.5 ounces. And now we want to find the percent of how much that is of the total. So I would just do 1.5 divided by 16. And that would give me 0.09375. That's the decimal. And then to make the percentage, we would go in reverse. So 1, 2. So it would be 9.375% error. I'm going to pause here for a second because this one is a little bit different. In the other ones, we've just been doing like how much of the amount. So we're given the percentage and then we have to find the amount of the original. And this one we have to find the percent. So to do a percent, we need to know what is the portion and what is the total, kind of just like with a fraction or with a unit rate. And then you just divide it to find the decimal. That's really all it is. So when you're doing percent error or percent growth or percent decay, you want to find the difference. And then you want to put that over the total, make that into a decimal, and then make that into a percentage. Okay. So here's another example, percent increase or decrease. Let's say a population of a small town grows from 1,300 people to 1,500 people in 1 year. What percentage did they grow? So we want to find how much they grew. So we know 1,500 minus 1,300 people is 200 people. We're going to do 200, and then the problem now is, what do we put underneath it? Whatever goes underneath is whatever we're comparing it to. We are not comparing it to 1,500 because that's the new total. We're comparing it to 1,300 because that's the old total. So I would do that. 200 divided by 1,300, or simplified 2 divided by 13, would be 0.1538, blah, 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 blah. So my percentage would be about 15.38% growth. Another way you might see it is because we grew, we have 100% of what was there before plus the new amount. So you might also see it written as 115.38%. And that shows really clearly that we grew compared to the original amount. If I was your teacher, I would take either way as long as you remember to write growth. Because if you don't, then I don't know if you're talking about growth or decay. But really what I would be looking for is, did you put the change over the original total? Because that's what we're comparing it to. So in general, if we want to find a percentage of something, we do the total multiplied by the decimal, and that's equal to the portion of the percentage. If we want to find a percentage based on like growth and decay, we would do the change divided by original amount. And then we would have that into a decimal, which we would change to a percent. So that was covered kind of like with percentages. You're not always going to see percentages but proportions. So here are some with equations. Let's say a store charges $6 for each item they provide. How many items would someone need to buy to spend $150? Make a unit rate, an equation, and find the solution. Okay, so first let's make a unit rate. We know it's $6 for each item they provide. That's just a lot of words for saying $6 per unit. Okay. So if I was to make an equation, I would say the amount items that they need to buy. So we'll say X is items and Y is dollars spent. Or I guess instead of items, we can say units. Let me use a smaller marker. So I would have Y equals 6X, because I would do 6 times the amount of units, and that would give me the dollars spent, right? And then I need to find the solution. I know that I want it to be equal to 180, and I know that each thing is 6. I don't know what X is at the moment, so I'm going to divide both sides by 6 to get X by itself, and then I have 30 equals X, so I need to buy 30 units. And always remember to put units in whatever problem you're working on. Make sure that if there is a unit, you're including it. Okay, let's do another example. A student needs to write a 4,000 word essay. They type at approximately 80 words per minute. How long will it take them to write the essay? So this one's not asking us specifically for the unit rate, but I'm going to write it anyway. So we know it's 80 words per minute. We'll say that X is going to be the amount of minutes. And we know that Y is equal to the amount of words, because we know the amount of words that we need to write. So I'm going to say Y is equal to 80X, because the amount of time that they're spending determines the amount of words that they're writing. So I would, and I know that they need to make 4,000 words. So I would divide both sides by 80. And X is equal to 50, I believe. Yep. That looks right. Yep. So I would say it would take them 50 minutes to write their essay. Also, I'm sorry if I ever get stuff wrong. It's quite possible. I mess up all the time. I'm just doing these for fun, so I hope that they help. So anyway, so some tips for writing proportions and solving proportions is first, write percentages as a decimal. That will help you so that you can transfer to the calculator a lot easier. Multiply the decimals by the totals, and that'll give you like the portion, especially in like a sales problem or a tax problem. If you write an equation, make sure you know what your variables mean. So like if you noticed here, I wrote like what x is equal to, what y was equal to. And then double check the context of the problem, especially with sales and growth and decay. You want to make sure that you're not accidentally writing something less or something more. So yeah, I hope that helps you, and good luck with solving word problems with proportions.